In this short and simple video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use ESXi-Customizer, a free download that lets you add VIBs to ISO files. It's not readily apparent how to add multiple VIBs, however. Adding one is simple enough. So here's the website that explains, how to download and how to run it and what it looks like, right? Straightforward. So I have 3 VIBs. Why do I have 3 VIBs? Well, my particular ASRock motherboard from 2011 has some HCI ports, some SATA ports that are not visible unless we inject this VIB in there. Another VIB here is 8168. That's a Realtek network driver that'll help my ESXi install media see the network adapters that are on my motherboard. And then finally we have this LSI provider, it has to do with the RAID array. Okay, so let's get started. What do we get started with? Well, we have to make sure we also have three VIBs I'm going to inject, plus the ISO file I'm going to inject into. And then finally, ESXi-Customizer itself downloaded. It's December 15, 2013. This is currently the most recent version. So let's get started with extracting this thing. So when you run it, it's going to do an auto extract. Open up that folder, and now we can run the command file. Just get this back in the center so you can see it. This is what it does. It runs a command prompt. You can minimize that. We don't really care about that so much. And we're ready to set it up appropriately. So we want the original ISO file. That sure looks like it to me. Right? That's the fall of 2013 release of ESXi 5.5. Easy. What's next? Select a VIB file. Change the file extension. Now we can see them. And we'll just go in the order they appear. Looks like alphabetical. So we'll inject the SATA one. And then finally, the working directory. Let's go to the same place. So we end up with things where we expect them. All right. Now, quick recap. Their screenshot shows something similar. And if you look for a description of working directory, the ISO is going to hang out there when we're done. Okay, so it's kind of important. Any other questions? Do we need UEFI bootable? Let's go back and see what they say. Okay, so if we want to mess around with maybe a EFI BIOS, booting off of maybe USB 3, perhaps, I'm going to keep it simple and leave that at defaults, which is off, which is what the screenshot shows as well. Just point that out. Okay, so we run it, and this is going to inject SATA support in there. You'll see it's extremely fast. Now we go up a level, and we'll see the output file. And there you go. Well, up here, it doesn't have the best file name, right? So to keep track of it, it did make an ISO file, and you can see it happened at 10:27 p.m., which is now, or a minute ago now. And it's good to give it a name. So, or a better name, a more effective name. So let's call it okay, so that's our creation. Now let's run ESXi-Customizer again. Go through the same drill. But there's something special we're doing. The original, we don't want the original, we want the tweaked one. So we want the one with SATA, and now we want to inject the next VIB, which is my Realtek network driver. So you can see what we're doing, kind of an iterative, recursing. We're going through and adding to a already slightly bigger ISO file, another VIB, second VIB, and click Run. Done. So you'll see 8:29 after the hour. There's a new ISO file. So you can hit F2 to start renaming that. Call it something like with SATA and Realtek. And finally, run it that last time. And slide it over, and we'll leave it up this time so we can see it working its magic. Browse our way to the one that has one ISO that has two VIBs already injected in, and browse our way to the proper VIB, which is the LSI one, right there, the one we haven't touched yet. And now click Run. Okay, you can see it doing its thing without us typing anything on the keyboard. We've now used the GUI to successfully inject 3 VIBs. Head back up, 10:31 p.m. Something like that. Now if you look at the size, you'll see it just kept creeping up in size. And you'll notice the VIB size. It creeps up it increments basically in the number of KB you would expect. So that's it. We now have an ISO to use. And if you're not familiar with Rufus already, I have a detailed article about it. But basically your next step would be to run Rufus. Watch how easy this is. It's pretty cool. So I've launched Rufus. I pointed to my flash drive, which is already inserted. We'll leave MBR for BIOS or UEFI. We'll leave FAT32. We can call it something like ESXi. We can call it this actually. Oops. F2, Control C, Alt Tab, paste. Not a bad volume label for our USB install media, right? And then finally browse our way to this masterpiece of a custom ISO we just created together. And this is the one, the longest file name of all. Click Start, and off it goes. It's making our boot media that we're going to boot from on our target ESXi host. And when it asks us where do we want to install to, we'll point to the same USB drive we've booted from. We'll now end up with a nice clean install of ESXi-55 that sees my LSI RAID controller health. It sees my Realtek network drivers. It sees my AHCI ports that are SMedia brand, not just the Intel ones. Those are the SATA ports. So whether you inject VIBs after when ESXi is running or before, it doesn't matter. You end up with the same result, a fully functional ESXi environment. And I like the cleanness of this where you just inject all 3 VIBs at once. You don't have to remember any commands or putty your way in or anything. You just end up with an ESXi-55 install that's going to work the way you want it. Hopefully you found this video helpful. I thank you for watching and for visiting tinkertry.com.